Hi everyone, I hope you guys are doing well. My name is Bria Barrows and I am a writer, content creator, and a mental health advocate. If you're new to my channel, welcome and thank you for stopping by. You'll expect videos on this channel that have to do with faith, mental health, self-esteem, confidence, conversations, basically real conversations about things that we should be talking about more but that we don't talk about enough. This is a very transparent channel, and it's also a channel that is a safe space. So nothing to do with perfection and, kind of like the fake content that you see on YouTube. It's more like real conversations. So if that's what you're interested in, subscribe and keep watching. So I did do a video asking for recommendations about what videos people would want to see. No one responded, but it's okay. Just for reference, if you guys ever have any recommendations that you want to have on this channel for like videos, don't be shy, just let me know in the comments. So Trisha, if you're watching this video, one of my good friends who interviewed me for a mental health video that I did, thank you for the recommendation for doing a video about self-esteem and why it's so difficult for Black women and girls. So I'm kind of like out of breath because I recorded a whole bunch of videos on my phone, but because it's a super old iPhone, it doesn't have enough space. So now I have another phone and I'm going to try to do one recording. I anticipated that this video would be long because I have a lot of knowledge on this topic, but I will try to make it small so it's not too long. So to answer this question of why self-esteem and self-love is difficult for some Black women and girls, I can give an example of just like my story. So basically growing up in elementary school, I was bullied, teased for having glasses and, crooked teeth, just that stage of like puberty and growing into yourself. This was in elementary school. I didn't know why kids were teasing me, but they were. And, it was just something that it bothered me, but I just didn't understand why kids were teasing me. I just didn't let it bother me. Going into high school, I think my sense of self-worth and confidence was actually like pretty good for someone who's like 14, 15, because I still had that naivety and I just didn't really care about like the things that people focus on, these days, like looks and stuff. I was just doing my thing and I wasn't focused on those type of things, so my confidence was pretty okay in high school. I think as I got older and into my college years, what kids would say about me and, just that stage of still developing yourself as, a young girl, like a young woman, it was starting to like catch up to me. And I'm just like, why were kids teasing me? I was still in the stage where I just wasn't feeling comfortable with myself because I was still in that awkward stage, the stage that some of us are in when we grow up. The stage where some of us have our glasses and, we haven't developed into ourselves yet. So that was the stage that I was going through. So I think as I got into my college years, my self-esteem it was something that I was, I suppressed my emotions and tried to pretend I was okay and that I was confident. But I think deep down, I still had a lot of traumas from my childhood of like bullying that I didn't, really deal with. So to talk about this for young women and girls, I think many of us can relate to not having, being bullied, for one. That could be an experience for many of us growing up, but also not having affirmation and those conversations of self-worth and self-awareness in our homes growing up. My parents are Caribbean. So in the Caribbean, and I'm not saying this is for all Caribbeans, but for many Caribbeans growing up, it's like affirmation and self-love is not something that they do. It's not something that's talked about, and it's not something that's passed forward to their children. So many of your parents, you'll notice that they don't really speak in terms of like self-love, self-confidence. It happens, and that's a blessing for families that did get that. But for many of us, we didn't have those conversations. So just imagine going through bullying and other traumas when you're younger, and you just don't have that affirmation that you're getting at home. That will definitely affect your self-esteem and how you see yourself as a young Black girl and woman. I can also say that family and friends and the things and that we say to each other can definitely affect a young girl and a young woman's self-esteem. The whole colorism thing of our skin color darker versus a lighter skin, texturism, your hair not being good enough, and how our features, is your nose too big? Is it, does it look like this? That can all affect how we see ourselves. And to me, it honestly breaks my heart because many of us have had these comments said about us when we were just kids. Like, no child should ever feel like they're not enough. And I think I'm so passionate about this because I'm knowledgeable on it from my own experiences, but it's also something I've observed in my community. And I just feel like it's a generational curse from slavery, and it's something that we have to break. Like how we speak to each other, of, the whole "are you good enough?" that whole conversation. So all of those factors really can affect how you see yourself as a young Black girl. I also think the media plays a role in how we see ourselves as women. I know in the media, celebrities, the stars are always the one who are commended for their beauty and, their accomplishments. And, it's like sometimes I really have to sit back and I'm just like, I know I'm a worthy person, but it's like the media can really affect how you see yourself. What's trending, what's popping body wise, that can really affect your self-worth. If there's anyone watching this video and you're like a critiquer and this conversation is too real for you, on this channel I talk about things that I know will help people who are in transition. It's important to be confident as a young woman and as a girl, but I'm also aware from my experience and from many other people that I know and from what I observed that confidence for many of us is something that is an evolution. Like, you don't just wake up and you're confident, because many of our experiences play a role in how we feel about ourselves. So this is why the journey, for young Black girls and women is so difficult. There's so many young Black girls and women who are walking around with childhood wounds. The little girl that was inside of them, had people picking on them, bullying them. They face colorism, they face texturism, featureism. And that little girl just needed a hug. That little girl just needed someone to tell her that she was worth it and that she is okay and that she's enough and that she would grow up to be someone wonderful and that she is wonderful as she is right now, And I only realized this when I started therapy and I started to really talk about these things and, uncover childhood wounds, why we struggle, the way that we do. So, I guess I'm not going to make this video in a part 2. I'm just going to try to go right through it. Some of the tips that I can say to help like build your self-esteem is to really try to do therapy. Like, I think therapy is very helpful, and it's something that I will be talking about a lot on this channel because I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I think therapy is super helpful because you tackle a lot of the childhood wounds and the things that we suppress over the years, like the bullying, the trauma, the things people said about us. That can really be uncovered in therapy. And I think for a lot of Black girls and women, therapy is a tool that is so helpful. It's helped me tremendously, and it's helped me to just unpack old childhood wounds and to just really understand myself as a person and why I think the way that I think and the things that I need to work on. Another thing that I would do is that when you're engaging on social media, try to follow accounts that are uplifting. Try to follow accounts that, maybe have quotes, about self-esteem and, building your worth. Therapy is one of the things that I say is that you need the most. And if you're looking to build your self-esteem and to really uncover wounds, I would say that's something that is probably beneficial the most. But and I will be dropping access to therapy, those types of links at the end of the video. So don't worry, I will always give info on therapy access. But if you don't have access to therapy, I would always say, like, you can follow accounts that are, inspiring, motivational. You can watch videos that are inspiring. You can journal. Journaling has been super helpful for me. As a writer, I wasn't doing that as much before. I'm not sure why journaling is not something that I was like led to do in the beginning, but now I find it super helpful. You can journal your emotions and just talk about the things that bother you, your insecurities and where you want to be, and start, talking to that wounded person in you, that wounded child, and talking back to your insecurities. And then doing a side on the other side of your journal that talks about who you want to be and who you really are, the confident side of you, the person that you want to be. That's a journaling exercise that you can do if you don't have access to therapy at this time. Another thing that you can do is, if I didn't mention this already, is following positive social media accounts when you're on Instagram, unfollowing accounts that are just not helping you on your journey of like self-love. Sometimes when it comes to social media, sometimes you need to take a break. Sometimes it's good to just pull back for a few days, you know, stop looking at stories, stop looking at everyone else, and just have an understanding of who you are as a person, especially considering that social media is very much based on aesthetics, how we look. And, you know, we're more than our looks. You know, we all want to feel confident and beautiful as women. We do. But at the same time, it's important to understand who you are and your value as a person. You know, that you're still valuable even if you're not made up and dolled up. That you're still valuable even when you're not killing it on the gram. You know, that you're still valuable even if you are not creating content at the moment, right? It's important to step back from social media to understand who you are as a woman. Another thing you can also do is try to surround yourself with people who can teach you something, people who are positive and uplifting. You know, surround yourself with women who are positive and uplifting. You know, if you know, a mentor, you know, try to draw yourself to people who can teach you something, because I'm finding that if you're in a space where you're negative and you're trying to build your self-esteem, attaching yourself to other people who, you know, are not self-aware or has that emotional intelligence to try to, you know, work on themselves, it can kind of pull you back down into that hole. So it's important, you know, if you are around people, that they're positive, that they're uplifting you, because we're trying to move forward from our experiences, from our traumas, and not moving backwards. So that's another thing that you can do. I wrote my notes as usual. Okay, I'm trying to think of like other things that you could do to build yourself. Therapy is number one. Like therapy will be super helpful in your journey. Like trust me. If you're really looking to like raise your self-esteem and just uncover, you know, traumas and difficulties, journaling is really helpful. Trying to think of what else you can do in the moment to really help. I can't think of anything right now other than what I've said. Actually, what I would say is you can start by just writing like love letters to yourself. Like I know for my past birthday, my past 26th birthday, I wrote a love letter to myself. Like I wrote a letter to myself about all the things I love about myself, because I think for Black women and girls, the environments that we grow up, sometimes it's in environments of like criticism. I know for me, like having Jamaican parents, you learn a lot being a Canadian having parents who are Jamaican. Like I think, and I don't blame my parents because my parents are great and they did their best from what they knew, but I think them growing up in an environment where they were often criticized in the Caribbean is something that they pass over down to their children. And it's like I find this also in other like family members and other people that I know, like friends, how we speak to young girls and young women is so important. Like, you know, if you see a friend and she's put on weight, like don't say, oh girl, you put on weight. Like no, we're gonna like uplift and be like, you look great, and we're not gonna mention something like that, because how would that affect her self-esteem? Like how we talk to each other. So what was I saying? How we talk to each other. Yeah, like how we talk to each other, just the criticism, like try to just instill, get your mind to be rewired to speak positive to yourself, because if you grew up and you never had that type of affirmation, it can be very difficult to transition out of negativity. I know for me on my journey, I'm just starting my self-love journey. It's literally a process. Like I get frustrated sometimes when I'm in therapy. I'm like, wow, like I really just want to get there. But it's like, you know, when you just start therapy, it's a process. Like it's taken years of childhood experiences and years of suppressed hurt to get to a place where you are not feeling confident about yourself. So to change those thoughts, it takes time, it takes work, it takes effort. So I would say starting by just having sticky notes that says positive things about yourself. You know, if you're finding it hard to find something that's positive about yourself, what have other people said about you? I know for me, I've always had like awareness of my strengths, but I do have difficulties. Like I really do struggle sometimes when it comes to self-esteem and confidence because of what I've experienced in my past. So it's definitely a journey, and I would say take your time to nurture yourself and be kind and compassionate to yourself on this journey. Sticky notes of like saying, you know, I'm worth it, I'm beautiful, God loves me, I'm unique, He has a plan for me, you know, all the skills that you know about yourself to be true that people have said that, you know, that you can think of. Write those things down and remind yourself of it. you know, over and over. You know, if you're looking at a picture of yourself on Instagram or just in general and you're finding yourself, you're criticizing yourself, you know, don't beat yourself up over it, but try to remind yourself, okay, I don't have to look like this to be worthy. You know, I don't have to look like what the media says to be worthy. I have inherent worth and value. You know, God doesn't make mistakes, and it will take time, but you will eventually start to believe it and your journey will get better. Yeah, just be patient with yourself. You know, I know sometimes people critique videos on YouTube, and as a writer who has published articles and online already, and I've done videos, I know people can critique. And I find in our community, in the Black community, sometimes like we come from a place of critique with each other. And I've tried to look on YouTube to find videos about like confidence and self-esteem and transitioning into that journey of building yourself, and, you know, childhood wounds and generational curses. And I've just found videos about like people just kind of being, you know, judgmental instead of like uplifting about it. Like, you know, oh, you know, I'm not gonna talk to this person because, you know, they're a hater, or, you know, that, you know, this type of woman is too competitive. That does happen, and it is very true, but you have to understand that a lot of the behaviors that we see sometimes in young girls and women with like comparison, competition, is because they never had that affirmation and confirmation growing up. So we can be kind and compassionate with each other as we grow on this journey. Like, it's not easy to build your confidence and your self-worth. So if there's anyone out there critiquing and, you know, looking to criticize, this ain't the place. This is a real talk, you know, YouTube channel that I'm on my page, where I talk about real things. And I know that there's a young girl or a young woman out there who is struggling with her self-esteem, who needs my story, and who needs, you know, confirmation that she's not alone in her journey of building her self-worth. You know, whoever you see who you think is confident on Instagram, whether on Instagram or in real life, that young woman has probably gone through a lot to get to where she is today. It takes a long time to build your self-worth. So, you know, just be patient with yourself and just remind yourself that you will get there. And it takes a long time to get through traumas and the parts of our stories that have shaped us into who we are. And sometimes those parts of our stories are not good parts. You know, sometimes they're difficult, you know, sometimes they're hard. You know, some of us have really gone through a lot when we were younger. You know, we could have been bullied for our weight. We could have been bullied for our skin tone. We could have been bullied for our hair. We could have been, there's a lot that, you know, a lot of us probably went through. So just be patient with yourself as you transition into the woman that God has called you to be. And those are my tips so far on building your self-confidence, and just some awareness of why it can be so difficult for young girls and young women to have self-esteem and self-confidence. And I hope this video is insightful, and I hope someone out there can relate to it. And I really would love to see your comments down below if any of you guys have had any difficulties on your self-love journey, or if you relate to any of the things that I've said. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon.